crime on the news front. Our good friend, our managing editor of Cree Broadcasting Network News, Emil Lee. Good morning.
Good morning, Soc. Good morning, listeners.
2 days in a row.
2 days in a row.
Don't
Nice
tell
to be
anybody.
here.
Glad you're back. And of course, it is always an honor to have our Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Luc Mercelina, in the studio. Dr. PM, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Sock. Thank you once more for inviting me in your very popular program, very known program. For me, it's a great honor to be here this morning, and the people of St. Martin in general, and of course, Emily sitting next to me here. Good morning, and looking forward to a great interview this morning for St. Martin.
We never run out of things to talk about. We never run out of things to talk about. There's I don't even know where to start anymore. I have so many things that I want to cover, and we could probably talk all day long. I guess we should start with, some of the, I hate rumors.
Yes.
I hate rumors,
Yep.
and I hate to, bring credence to rumors by talking about them, but I guess I have to ask the question.
Yep.
There's lots of discussion out there about how government is going to fall again and
Yep.
things are not stable.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going on? What's the truth?
Well, so from my experience in the past, by the way, very often when there's these kinds of discussions perhaps happening in the background, they throw it out in public to kind of get a sense of what the public sentiment's going to be like. So it could really come down to, one or two people hoping that things are not stable, and they just throw it out there to see, how the public reacts. And if the public gets mad, then they back away, and if they're all for it, they encourage it. So indeed, to Soc's question, do you think that the discussion actually just sort of feeds that effort?
Yes. No, what I think is, of course, is one task for opposition. Opposition wants to be in government. That is a rule. So
Well, that's
one.
politics,
one.
right?
So
That's
that's
normal.
politics. What you see happening is that somebody throws it, as Emil Lee says, outside there. And then the idea is, let me see the pulse it outside here. What's the general opinion about this? What's the feeling, the sentiment?
Mm-hmm.
What I did the day before yesterday is the day before starting of the treatment of the budget. I wrote a strong article about my position on what I think is the stability of this government and the intactness of this government. And I was very firm and evident and clear on that. And on the base of the reactions on my article, the opposition understood that they have to stay away from this. So they are not going to entertain this, I'm sure. I see, for example, the front page today in our newspaper that one of the members of parliament is again starting to say, if we don't form, he's going to. That's not possible, because he has the opportunity to do it in the coming days. So he say that if we don't perform, he is going to come with a motion. But how he's going to give us a chance to perform the way he wants, for him not to bring the motion is not possible. So actually it's just threatening. But they realize in the opposition that there is no ground and willingness to entertain this initiative. And I think the more they continue on this direction that they're heading, the more the public is going to distance for them. Let's be clear. There has been a election last year in January. We managed to get the government installed on the 3rd of May. After 2 weeks, they threw down the government by the same group of people that are now trying to entertain this again. We got a new election. The people sent us a message. We are not now entertaining instability. The only thing that serves St. Martin's future now in a good way is if we have sustainability, but stability and continuity of governance. That is what we need. So after going through this, now we have since November, we have this second government that got a strong mandate from the public, from the people, from the populace, telling everybody enough is enough. We do not want political games and instability. We are not even 1 year in government, because officially we are a government as of November 2024. And now they start again to see, okay, where are we standing? Can we continue with this actually historical tradition, culture of let's shake the government again? And it's not going to happen.
Bravo. Because it seems to me, PM, that that those that want to try and bring government down, and not just here, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's this mentality that says, We really don't want to do the people's business. We don't want to improve things. We don't want to make things better. We just want to keep shaking the tree
Yes.
so we can keep collecting a paycheck.
Yes,
That's
but
what it feels like
yes,
to me.
but while they're shaking the tree, they're
They're doing
killing the
They're-
same tree that is giving everybody fruits and shadow.
Without a doubt.
And that is the problem with this country. And you see also with each initiative that this government takes, the culture is always ask for something. And when you get it, before you get it, starts actually destroying it, because you have to be always careful what you ask for. Like, for example, there's a great topic now going on over taxation. Everybody says we need revenues, we need more income, more has to happen, and we have to work on compliance, of course, for revenue increase for our country. Now, the Minister of Finance is seeing, okay, where can I get money? And then they touch base on the topic of the tax. And then all of a sudden, everybody is, but
You're talking about the dividend tax.
dividend tax, for example. Okay, no, we aren't going to touch. If tomorrow we touch property tax in this country, you're going to see how many people are going to stand on their back legs and say, no, this is not what is going to happen for this country. But the whole day people say we have to get more income, we cannot survive it, and there are more that go even further and say we have to also become more and more independent. More and more independent means more revenues for us to be able to pay our bills to survive as a country that has full autonomy, if not completely independence. And that is not going to happen if we don't have enough revenues. So whatever initiative this government takes, if it's whatever tax it is, whatever initiative in the tax atmosphere for this country, you will always be bombarded, because at the end of the day, it's going to touch your wallet. It's going to touch yourself. Everybody wants changes as long it's not themselves involved in contribution to the solution. And that is a problem of a country. It's a common problem, and we just have to deal with it. It is what it is.
So, as we kind of tread on taxation a little bit, PM, it would seem to me that, in any business, right? I know this from here, from being a broadcaster in the radio business. We can improve our bottom line by doing one of two things: by more revenue or cutting expenses. And for us, it's sales revenue. For government, it's tax revenue, or fees, whatever the case may be. But we can also pare back expenses, and when to make things better, right? To make things better when we get to a positive bottom line, to have more money to spend.
Yep.
One would have to wonder that probably one of the largest employers on St. Martin is our government.
Yes.
What do we do about bringing the size of government down, about cutting expenses to improve the bottom line rather than raising taxes?
Yes, that's one that many people talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
We have to think on employment too. Okay, I'm going to size down my government apparatus. What I'm going to do with the great unemployment percentage that I'm going to create. These people are going to get socioeconomic challenges. People without work, they're unemployed. They have to survive. They have to maintain themselves and their children and their family. We're going to get more poverty, more criminality because of an increase in the I solved my problem as government by slimming down the government apparatus, but while I'm doing that, I realize that I'm going to push my problem in actually the floor of the community, and with its negative effects too. So at a certain moment, it's easy to say, okay, let's slim it down, but while slimming it down, I'm going to create other problems, and because I'm a small island, it's going to hit me back in the face. And it sounds so easy to say slim it down, but while I'm slimming it down to solve my problem, I'm going to create other problems. So I have to be very, very careful in taking such major decisions.
Well, I think this is where the tax side of it comes in, right?
Yep.
Because if we can create a favorable environment for business to flourish, and we can improve the education of our folks that are coming out of school and university to be fully available to work in the business sector.
Yeah.
If we if we create an environment where businesses want to be here because we're in a lower taxed environment,
Bracket, yeah.
then 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 business grows. Then there are more jobs. There's more, but we need to have the educated workforce
Of course.
to be able to do the job.
Of course, and that is evident, and that is the way we have to go. But it's a delicate balance. Before the program started, I was speaking with Mr. Emil Lee, and he told me, a way to do it also is, if you want to combat all of this, you have to educate. Technically, institutionally wise, you have to educate your populace,
Sure.
because the more educated your people are, the more opportunities they get to get great jobs on this island that is really going to propel the country in the right direction. I said it recently in Curacao in an interview. I was bombarded on social media. I said that actually we neglected the education technically of our people as a government. And at the end of the day, we end up with a lot of vacancies in our community for people to work, but we don't have the adequate people to fill these vacancies in. And then the conclusion is we have failed by educating our people on technical level. The failure is not the one that you get at home, the education at home that you get from your parents. I have this responsibility as a government to educate the people technically, to offer them the institution, the curriculums that are necessary for them to follow great formation. When I said that in Curacao, everybody here, especially the opposition, was playing with that, telling that I was telling the people, some are uneducated people, that they didn't say that. I said we failed as a government to technically and actually educate our people, for them to actually have a contribution to the workforce of St. Martin in a way that we are lacking now. That's our problem. Every person, if you see how many ads we have now in the newspaper for people that they're looking for, and I can tell you in advance already that all these are going to be foreigners that's going to apply for this function, because we do not have the adequate educated people technically to occupy these chairs. It's a big challenge for St. Martin. If you want to twist this, we have to create an education system that actually accommodates the wishes from the labor market. That is the direction that we have to go. And we are building a nation. We are talking every day about nation building. Nation building is, can I educate a nurse that I can use back in 10 years from now in my own healthcare system? Can I educate a policeman?
Right.
Is that the case? Can I educate a teacher? As long as we cannot start educating our own people to fill these critical vacancies, we are going to be struggling with the development of our country.
I agree with you 100%. As you mentioned, we were speaking before we went on air, and in my role before as Minister of Labor, it was very clear St. Martin actually doesn't have an unemployment problem. St. Martin actually has an education problem.
Of course.
And the Labor Office could very clearly see that those who had good educations found work. It was really the problem with the people who have problem with basic skills, reading, math, etc.
To be really honest, I saw it at my time when I was teaching at USM. It wasn't for lack of desire, but I was watching young students, recent graduates of high school, of our secondary school system, show up for their first day in university without the basic level of fundamental skills that I would expect them to have to be university students.
Of course.
And
If you see before, for example, ads that we have now by NRPB for the huge projects that still have to be realized for country St. Martin, we are now putting ads for steel benders and carpenters and plumbers. I think we as an island should be possible to have institutions to educate these professionals, to have them in our community. And now you're going to get from abroad, you're going to get a steel bender. And why? Because this man is, of course, has a documented proof that he has a skill that he has learned for. And we have a lot of people that are doing things here in St. Martin, but they don't have the documented confirmation of what they're doing. And it's a mundial shift is taking place. You cannot anymore walk in a building and say, I can do this. The first thing they ask you is, can you prove that you have this background information? And that is where we have to start working on, to start creating these institutions for us to be able to educate our people. Technically, I'm telling them, people understand it good, and I'm not telling that the people of Simara are uneducated people. if you understand the context of that interview in Curacao once more, you're going to realize that it's exactly what Emil Lee just said. We have to educate institutionally wise our people to accommodate them in the vacancies that are a lot of them. There is a lot of work in St. Martin to do. We need a lot of people, but every time again we are confronted with a insufficiency, a deficit actually, of skilled people to do the right job for St. Martin.
So this past week in Council of Ministers press briefing, the Minister of Education was there, and it came out, and it really kind of surprised me, understanding that government actually has no say in private schools.
No.
So that's CIA, Learning Unlimited, and this Ocean View, or there's one in Indigo Bay. And then it was shocking that the subsidized schools, of which is the Catholic schools and many of the other schools, government only has oversight in terms of the budget. They give them money, they need a financial report back. So indeed, when we talk about the education level, it needs to step up, but actually, government has very little ability to manage that process.
Yes.
So one of the things that I think I found frustrating, and I wonder for you, basically you still come from the private sector, is government moves so slowly. The things that you see that need to change takes you 2 years to change.
And you know why, Emil? Because we have a understaffing of this whole government apparatus. We lack the knowledgeable.
So I'm going to ask,
people.
understaffing or not the correct staff? Because you have a lot of staff.
Both.
Yeah.
And we have great civil servants that is doing incredible. They're doing actually work for 3 persons, believe me, those that are the right person in the right chair. We have, of course, due to the circumstances of the build-up of the history of the labor market of St. Martin, you have, of course, a group that you think, could be better, but they do their best. But actually, it's a combination of needing more people in our apparatus, combined with knowledgeable people to sit in the right chair to execute. Recently, we had actually a program to see if we can recruit professionals for the government. 96 persons showed interest to come. At the end of the day, if I'm not mistaken, 63 persons applied, and from the 63, we took immediately already 30 persons in service. And that is great because then you do selection on their curriculum vitae, on their CV. Then you say, okay, these are people that has a diploma, has education in specific directions that I need people. And in that way, we're trying now to fill in the existing critical vacancies that are related already to an approved budget to pay them when they start working for us. Because we need more. Another challenge is the financing to pay all the knowledgeable people that we need in our government organization. That's another challenge. So it's about education, Emil. It's about not having the specific professional ones that we need in the right chairs in government. And the third one is the financing. We have another challenge as government is that we cannot pay them what the private sector pays them. So, for example, we need legislative lawyers. And in the private sector or in the Netherlands, they pay them great salaries to have them. And seeing now the fact that even in the Netherlands, legislative lawyers are very sporadically to be found, it's a problem for us to attract them to here by paying them a lower salary than they would get in the Netherlands. So financially, it's also a challenge for us to stay an attractive country for professionals to come and help us. It's a big challenge. So we need more professionals, but we need also the money to pay them, and that's a problem also. And most of them, until now, unfortunately, are foreigners, because every time you see a big project, we need people, and we have to fly them in to help us. And that is a challenge. It's a pity, by the way, because we have to work and see how we can build this nation back. But we cannot continue hiring every time. And they come in phases. They come for a contract, they come, they go. They can't get to attach with their heart to the country because they know that they have to go back. They have a family that they leave behind. So it's always a lot of challenges to get the right people to do a job here in St. Martin.
For sure. So we talk about the financing side of it, PM. It would seem to me that if we could find a way to increase compliance without changing a single thing in our tax code, if we could just complete or increase compliance from where we are by 25%, or even 10%, that would solve a lot of our problems.
Our Minister of Finance is working on that. The second challenge of increasing the finance, the compliance, is the manpower to execute. They say, okay, increase the compliance, but you have to have enough manpower to go through the files, to hunt these people, to visit them at home, to make appointments with them, and it's a big machine you need to improve the compliance.
I want to share a story with you. I got for one of my companies, and this company is a holding company. It holds real estate. It has no revenue. It has no expenses. It files its taxes with zero every year, has for its entire existence. And I get a fictitious, or I get an assessment for 200,000 guilders in the mail from the tax office. Now, if they can take the time to send me a bogus assessment, that can't we find the time? Let's stop sending out the silliness and let's focus on the real stuff.
The real stuff, absolutely. And that is, I see that the Minister of Finance is doing extremely her best to do it. Her challenges is also manpower and also the know-how. She's working very hard to see how she can fill that in. But of course, to improve the revenues of this country, we have to focus now, first of all, on compliance, because that is at this particular moment breaking the country, the lack of the discipline to really be correct with your country and follow the obligation of paying a tax, because with tax we have a great surrounding to live in, right? That's how it works.
But perhaps a suggestion, Prime Minister, if you look at the press, the releases that come out of the Ministry of Finance, you see very little there about the ministry's efforts to improve compliance. It really does tend to be more about new taxes, right? So I think that the impression that compliance is a priority, I don't think that impression's being created. And I know, for example, I've asked several times about the Airbnbs. You know, the hotels are competing against these vacation rentals that aren't paying any taxes, and that's simply a matter.
Incorrect.
Okay.
Absolutely incorrect. But you know, Emil, what our challenge is?
What's incorrect? I'm sorry, just to make sure.
No, that Emil, they have a hotel,
right,
and they pay room tax,
right,
and the same person can book in an Airbnb.
No, that's incorrect.
No. But I'm talking about the vacation rentals, the condos that the people are renting, but they're not paying.
The same. So if I rent a condo from a person, or a house to stay with my family, and he charges me $2,000 to stay a week, 2 weeks in that house, he is not going to declare that as income.
But he's obligated to, and that's my point.
That's
That's
compliance. Of course, but that's the compliance that we have, the discipline and.
But we've been talking about it for since she came in.
But you know, Emil, you have to realize how this country works too. We came in 2024, halfway 2024 in May. We had to approve a budget 2024, set up a budget 2025, get ourselves in a challenge again with this 2025, treat it in our parliament in December and again in January, approve it in 2025, get ourselves in June again with this budget 2025. The 2026 is waiting on us, and we have only 6 months to handle it, and we would like to pass it. There are so many things that is pressuring this country because of the way things are moving in this country.
But I think that's where the objection, for example, to a dividend tax comes. This requires a legislative change. It requires resources from government in order to pursue that.
Of course.
Compliance from, for example, the Airbnb sector is simply somebody going through the listing on Airbnb, sending them an email saying, hey, you owe, please demonstrate that you've been paying your taxes. It's simply an enforcement issue.
a simply enforcement issue. I understand you, and that has to happen.
If you want me to help you collect it, I will help you collect it.
Okay, I will think on that. Don't worry. I will not forget this proposal.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, let me do this. Let me take a quick commercial break. We'll come back. I have a different topic I want to go back to.
Oh, of course.
An old topic that we haven't talked about in a while, and I want to
Okay,
get your
no
perspective
problem. No problem.
on where we are.
No problem.
It is 8:38. We'll be right back after these messages more with our Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Luc Mercelina.
I mean, you're right. Yeah.
Welcome back to the program. Of course, Emil Lee with us this morning. St. Martin Insights News that matters to you, and our managing editor of Korea Broadcasting Network News, and our Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Luc Mercelina. I'm proud to call him a friend after all these years, too. So I want to go back to an old topic. We haven't talked about this in a long time. Our friends at the GEBE.
Yes.
Things are definitely more stable than they were last year this time.
Yeah.
100%.
For sure.
What's the status? And I know that we ordered new generators. I know that we brought in, or I think we ordered new generators. I know that we had the 10 megawatts and then the I think the 20 megawatts that we brought in. We said we were told we were going to keep maybe the 10 megawatts in addition to the 20. What happened? Where do we stand at GB now?
Okay, Dr. Soc, the following. The first thing we had was a national energy crisis.
Yes.
It was a threat for the grid stability. Okay, with some heroic intervention, we could cope that instability of the grid.
Heroic is an understatement, sir.
But now we are in the phase of not the stability being our challenge, but the sustainability of energy for County St. Martin, because still we are in a very delicate position with our stability, but we have it. But it's now about sustainability. Can I guarantee this stability that I have today, this morning? Can I continue to guaranteeing it in 3-4 months or years from now? And that's why big things has to happen now by the GEBE. One of them, of course, was there was a lot to do. It's not about only the production of energy. That was a big challenge, but the whole organization. We are now busy with the CEO that is now a temporary manager awaiting screening to be appointed as the definitive CEO of the company. We are busy the same with a temporary manager in the form of a CFO, awaiting the screening by the Secret Service, by the VDSM, to get approval for us to switch it to a CFO. And now we are also busy with the COO. And with the COO, we're going to move forward with the screening that I just got approval, that they're going to start also with the screening of all the candidates there, because our request went out already. They acknowledge our letter, our request. They're busy with it. Next to that also, we start working on actually broadening the amount of board members for the GEBE. I have an energy committee that is working now with GB to actually have a plan on a short term, how we're going to move forward with accommodating the 3 new generators that are being ordered now, together with, parallel with that, the development of alternative green energy for St. Martin. While we're doing this, as if you look back, we have, as I said already, we have neglected institutional education for the people in the past. We have neglected a utility for our country. If you look at the dilapidated condition that our plant is in GB, in KB, this plant also has to be refurbished, reconstructed in a way that once we accommodate the new generators, each about 14 million. Imagine how much money that is.
So we're getting in three of them.
Three of them. Can you imagine? This is big money we're talking about. So there is a lot of challenges for the GEB, and we are working on all of them together. Next to that, we are now looking for a technical assistance for GEB, only to guide the process of the purchasing, the installation, and the functionality, the production of energy by these 3 generators. Next to that, we cannot continue on fossil fuel. We cannot. We have to change that to green energy. So next to taking care of sustainability and stability, we have to make a shift in action of how do we see the future of St. Martin concerning energy, and that is going to be probably the solar panels that you're a fan of course. And of course we have to develop that. We need the land, we need a solar panel, we need a vision, we need the know-how. It's easy to say let's switch to it, but it's a lot comes to look around the corner for us to organize it. And we are gradually moving step by step with this GEBE, but I can assure you that at the end of the day, the small puzzle pieces will form a nice picture at the end of the day.
So I want to go back, and when we had the crisis, as you describe it,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
There was that first set of rented generators that we
Yes.
bought
Yeah.
that we brought in. I think they were 10 megawatts, if my memory
Yes.
is correct.
Yeah.
And then there was a second set that
Of
were
renting.
the of lease to own
Yep.
that was 20
Yep.
megawatts.
Yep.
Uh, is the 20 megawatts? Those are still here and running.
These are owns. We bought those, but
Right.
in a rent to own agreement.
So those are ours. They're
Yeah,
here.
at the end, we pay them off,
Right.
and we are renting, paying
Right.
in a construction. That at the end, they're going to be ownership of GEBE.
Right. And so those are part of the grid and generating electricity
Yes,
now.
yes.
The original rented 10 megawatts,
Yes.
are those still here?
They're still here, but we are not paying for them anymore. The company can lift them and pick them up whenever they want.
Okay.
But at this particular moment, we are relying on the 20 that we actually bought in a
Right.
construction of rent to own,
Got it.
combined with the old generators that we have that are still working.
And so the
until we replace them.
the original 10 rented are going back.
They're
And they're
going
not
back.
on the grid now.
No,
We're
because
not
they're
using
not ownership of GEB.
right, and they're not being used now.
At this particular moment, they're not being used.
And the original GB plant that's here now, we had the two big generators that were having problem. Those are up and running.
Yes.
And do we envision that when we add the new 3 big generators that we're going to get a year and a half down the road, 2 years down the road, do we envision that the old plant will continue to operate and function as part of the overall capacity to give us
Yes.
extra
Yes.
room?
We did a great study recently, and we have got experts to give us that analysis about the future alternative green energy for St. Martin,
Mhm.
Energy Nautics. They made a report, very interesting report. Even if we go to the full-blown accommodation of solar panels as alternative energy for Country St. Martin, at the end of the day, solar panels for Country St. Martin, if we use the max out of it, will only accommodate 30% of the total amount of energy that we need on a 24-hour base that is consumed. So solar panels at the end of the day will actually be responsible for 30% of the energy use as alternative energy. If we make optimum use of all the recommendation of Energy Nautics, solar panel will cover approximately, in ideal circumstances, 30% of the total capacity of energy production for the consumers on the island.
And does that include what we might get from private businesses and individuals that might like to also go solar if we had some net metering involved?
If we do that,
Yeah.
we have to change a lot of laws too, has to be changed. It's about concession.
Mhm.
Are we going to buy it from the private sector? In principle, that will add some percentage extra to the 30%, but we will not be able with solar panels able to completely cover the energy necessity of Country St. Martin. So we will always have to rely a little on fossil fuel in the way St. Martin's setup is conform the report of Energy Nautics that they recently presented to us via NRPB.
Is that available to read for private?
Yes,
too?
I think it's available to read.
I
You
would
can
love.
approach NRPB. They
I'm
can
gonna.
give you for
Yeah,
sure.
I would love to read. I'm curious
it's
now.
curious. Yes, of course.
And I think one of the other things that's been a hot topic too is the notion of trying to reduce the costs to consumer,
Yes.
especially the
Oh,
seniors.
that's a good one. Yes.
Yeah. So
That's
where
lovely.
where are we with
Okay,
that?
so we had we have a challenge in this country. Our energy utility bills are too high. If you see the challenges of the society at this particular moment, so we have to do something. The prices are too high. I approached the RAC. The RAC is a regulatory authority, Curaçao, that regulates those prices in Curaçao of utility, in combination with the BTP, Bureau Telecommunicatie and Post, that is the BTP St. Martin. Together they presented me a 40-page report, and in that 40-page report they come with recommendations about how we can lower the kilowatt hour price for the consumers. They came with some recommendations, as the shareholder of the GEBE, being government, being the shareholder, a letter has been sent with the recommendations to the supervisory board of directors of GB, with a strong request to follow the recommendations of the RAC-BTP group that did the research, and we are awaiting now the reaction of the executive board through the supervisory board to get back to us. As you know, there is a corporate governance structure. I cannot, as the shareholder, walk in GB and tell them, do this. It doesn't work like that. So I have to respect the corporate governance of government-owned companies, and in this case, GEBE. So I directed my letter to the supervisory board. But by the way, I did it to the two layers, to the supervisory board and the executive board, for not to be any situation of miscommunication. And from there on, I am awaiting now. I'm in the phase of awaiting their reaction on the recommendations that I gave them, that I got from the report from RAC BTP.
So PM,
we're about 37 kilowatt cents. 37
Yes,
cents
very
US
good. Very good.
an hour.
Yeah.
Will is the recommendation to lower that by how much?
6 to 7 cents.
Okay.
That's not bad.
No, that's a start.
That's a recommendation.
Yeah.
And that is what I wrote in my letter too. So now it's up to GB. I will, of course, make sure that I make them understand that that is a absolute necessity for the consumers at this particular moment. And I think that I will have the goodwill, and I hope that I have the goodwill for them to cooperate, for us to be able to do something, bring some relief to the consumers of St. Martin.
Bravo.
There were a number of missing board members. Have those seats been filled?
Yeah, no, those seats, as you know, government-owned companies has been an extension arm of politicians and ministers. That has had some negative effect on the progress of those government-owned companies. As for example, GEB, we wanted transparency. We wanted integrity in the process. So we decided to actually approach the BDO, and the BDO is the independent organization that is going to move forward with the recruitment of board members for the GEBE. And because they are going to do it, we want the exact profiles. For example, this member of the board should have a financial background. This board member should have a legal background. So we describe first the profiles that we need, and then the BDO is going to do the recruitment for us and propose to the supervisory board, and the supervisory will propose them to us. That is how it works.
So a real quick question, and I think the goal of reducing the electricity prices by 6 to 7 cents is amazing. That's wonderful.
Intention, huh?
The intention, yes. But when the prices were high, or as they are, GB still had financial problems. So how are you going to reduce the electricity costs without putting GB into a big financial hole?
Yes, realizing, of course, that GB is our own government-owned company. It's ours. And that is the delicate and the difficult part of this negotiation is you want to help your people, but you don't want to break your company. And that is the delicate balance and the thin line that we're walking on now, to make sure that we do something for the people while not breaking the company.
So your report says you could do this.
Yes.
And keep GB financially healthy.
Yes, that is the recommendation from the RAC BTP, and they did a great job. And I'd like to make use of this opportunity to thank the BTP St. Martin in combination with the RAC in Curaçao for the great job that they did. They took their time. It took a little longer than we expected because it's a quite complicated process to get to conclusions. They did it. They came with recommendations, and it's now on the table of GEBE, and the people are awaiting for a relief because our people outside there are suffering, and we have to do something for them.
That's great.
Prime Minister, thank you for spending some time with us this morning.
I have one more remark before I leave.
Yes, sir.
The only thing St. Martin needs now are dedicated people with a commitment for sustainability, but a commitment for stability in governance. I'm warning all those outside there that are entertaining the game of, as you said, shaking trees to see if something is going to happen with actually making this government unstable. I'm going to warn them. They have to look back to two things. The mandate that was given in November last year, that they actually crucified instability by calling in a government that they believe in to give continuity of stability for the country. That is one. And I challenge all those in Parliament that are entertaining this still for the sake of entertainment, for them to analyze what happened with all those parliamentarians that recently shook the government, that it fell in May. And if they analyze that and draw the right conclusion, and see where the sentiment of the people are today, there is only one way to go, is to continue governing for 4 years to make sure that there is progress for the people of this country. I want to make use of this opportunity, Dr. Soc, to thank you, and I wish everybody in St. Martin a great day, and let's not give up on this country, because at the end of the day, St. Martin can be a great place for everybody, and I'm doing my part that it must become a great place for everybody. Emil Lee, too, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Sir Martin, God bless you and have a nice weekend.
God bless you, PM. Thank you for being
Thanks
here.
for coming.
We appreciate it very much. It is 1 minute after the hour of 9 o'clock right here in the Northeast Caribbean. Your marine and tropical weather update is on the way right after these messages. Please stay with us.